This is the Pixel Watch 4, and even though it's already been a huge year for smartwatches, after wearing this for a month, I have to say, this one absolutely crushes the competition in a few key categories. The watch maintains a uniquely Pixel design while having tons of huge improvements to the battery, the charging speeds, the accuracy, the hardware, and the user interface. But now that it's actually been a month since I first had my hands on this watch, it's time to step away from the spec sheets and give this a proper review. I'm talking accuracy tests, nuances you only realize after wearing this every day for a couple weeks, and ultimately the final verdict at the end. But let's start off with the design of this. Obviously, it's a very Pixel looking watch, much like the first and second generation, but I think they're finally delivering what we really wanted the original Pixel watch to look like. The display is really going from edge to edge here, and the display is one of the biggest highlights of this watch. Like, I've tested, honestly, probably hundreds of smartwatches, and this has to be the best display in my opinion. Like, the colors are so vibrant, it's really bright, and honestly, even off-axis viewing, it's just so good with this watch. I can see the time from this angle right here. Pretty crazy, and it's mostly because of that domed glass on the top. On the right side, of course, you can see the stainless steel, well, the entire stainless steel chassis on this, but we've got a stainless steel crown that also is a button, so you can spin it to navigate through the UI. I'll talk about the UI later in the video. We've got our other button above that, and we have our microphone on the bottom. On the left side, we've got a speaker and these two little pins. These are the charging pins, and that might be the biggest improvement to this watch. I know it's always been like a pipe dream just to be able to, set your watch on the charger while you shower and then be ready to go for the full day. And that's just never really been the case. Like, the Galaxy Watch Ultra was kind of close to that, but ultimately every day I would be down 10% lower than I was the day before, and I would end up recharging entirely from 0% at least once every 8 days or so. This one's definitely getting a lot closer. Like, I can put this on the charger, and if I'm at like 30%, it'll get to 80 or 90% by the time I'm done showering, and that easily gets me through an entire day. Now, of course, it depends on your settings and your brightness and stuff like that, and also obviously how long you shower, but this is the closest I've seen to being able to pretty much perpetually use the watch without ever taking it off and charging it, aside from when you shower. Back to the design though, this has 50 meters of water resistance. There's two different sizes, 45 millimeters, as you can see right here, and a smaller 41 millimeter. And there are several colorways. They're a little bit confusing because the bands are kind of included in the colorways on Google's site, but it's really like the stainless steel on the side is it's gonna be a little more gold on some of them, a little more dark, a little more silver on some of them. And the straps are of course really easy to swap out, although you kind of do need to have some nimble fingers to push that tiny little button there, but you push the button and then you rotate the watch strap over, and then it comes right off. It's kind of a beautiful, seamless way to do that. And when you take it off, you'll see there's a little screw on the inside. So again, kind of for the first time almost ever, we have a real flagship smartwatch that has user repairable aspects to this. Like, you can replace the display and you can replace the battery, and those are probably the two most likely things you would ever be replacing if you buy a watch and keep it for 5 years or so. Now, I mentioned the battery really performs even better than most Ultra watches, including the Apple Watch Ultra and the Galaxy Watch Ultra, because you could, top it off really fast. And the battery life on this watch is claimed to be 40 hours, and that's on the larger one. The smaller one, I think, is about 30 to 35 hours. But yeah, it seems to really be quite close to that. For example, I took it off the charger yesterday at about 4 p.m. Right now it is 10:42 a.m. So I didn't charge it overnight. I didn't charge it while I was showering this morning, and I'm at 77%. So on 24 hours, you're probably going to lose like 50-60% battery. And if you're able to charge it up quickly, I mean, that's a huge positive. And I know I've been talking about charging and battery for a while, but that's really been like the biggest struggle I've had with most smartwatches out there, and I'm really excited this one fixes that. But the last thing I want to mention on this topic is that while it's charging, it kind of acts as my bathroom clock. Like, it shows you the time, and I don't have a functioning clock in my bathroom, so that's what I do when I'm showering. Now, before we get into the accuracy testing, which I think is incredibly interesting on here, I want to give a couple little downsides to the design. One is that because stainless steel is really durable, which is great, but the glass really kind of starts at the very edge. The stainless steel doesn't do a whole lot to protect that glass. So you could very likely damage this if you just kind of hit your wrist against something. And because it's kind of domed like that, it's going to be harder to find a good case for this that doesn't ruin that off-axis viewing and also protects the glass. Like, one of the best aspects about this watch is also one of the most vulnerable aspects about this watch, which is the design of the glass on the top. Also, even though like the display, everything's really snappy, sometimes I find if I'm touching in the corners, maybe it's just me, but it seems to not be as responsive as I would always like. Now let's get into the accuracy tracking of this watch. I took it on a run and a walk and some intervals, and generally intervals are really difficult for a watch, but comparing this to the Polar H10, which is a known accurate ECG heart rate strap, this did an excellent job. You can see that it tracks it pretty much exactly. It nails it on the intervals. Sometimes you'll have a tiny bit of lag on the way up or the way down, which is very natural because it's wrist-based optical heart rate sensing. It's a lot different than a chest strap that's using ECG. But all things considered, when we compare the data side by side and we look at an R value, which is a statistical representation where 1.00 is a perfect match, this is about 0.99. And if you look at how this performs compared to other watches, looking at the Whoop MG, the Apple Watch, this is outperforming those in my testing in terms of R value. And honestly, I think it is just incredibly accurate for running, for walking, for things like that. I'm just very impressed by what Google is able to do with this heart rate sensor. As far as the GPS goes, it's not quite as accurate here as I would like it to be. It's definitely good, but considering it now has dual frequency GPS, which means it should be better in, narrower spaces where there's tall buildings or mountains or you're in a canyon. When I was doing a workout with this, you could see for the most part, it didn't really cut corners. It wandered a little bit off the trail here and there, but between these buildings, it did still wander across the road and into the other building, even though I was staying on one sidewalk. Going down to this open space, you can see it does a good job in open space. That's a lot easier in a wide open field like this. There's a little helicopter landing pad that is a square. I walked around that square and it traced a square almost exactly correct, just cutting the corners very slightly. The rest of my workout, it did an excellent job as well. You can see only cutting corners very slightly, but the GPS, while it is mostly accurate, is probably not the most accurate one out there. As far as sleep tracking goes, this now has a next-gen temperature sensor on it. It's allegedly 18% more accurate. I slept with this a ton of nights, and I have to say for the most part, it does a pretty good job of giving a sleep score, which is a very subjective, not like a common metric between watches, but I think the sleep score in this does pretty well reflect how I'm feeling on a daily basis. I wake up, it says 90, it says 70, whatever, and I have to say it usually feels right to me. Looking at how well it tracks your deep sleep and your REM, I actually compared this to the Apple Watch and the Whoop as well, wearing all the devices 4 nights in a row, and it did a pretty good job. It was kind of in between the two for the most part. So sleep tracking seems to be pretty solid. I don't have a reference device to confirm which one was the most correct, but just anecdotally, sleep score and how I felt, I think was pretty reliable on this. Talking about workouts, kind of getting away from accuracy and just what it's like to use this during workouts, one of the worst, dumbest things, no offense, Google, one of the dumbest things about the older Pixel watches was the swim workout. If you opened a swim workout on the older Pixel watches and wanted to swim in a pool, it would basically just tell you a time. It didn't show you how many laps. It didn't really show you heart rate. It was just completely useless. And if you went in the app later, on your phone, it would show you that. But finally, Google updated that, and we have a swim workout on this watch that actually works like a swim workout. So kind of good that we're finally seeing that. Hopefully somebody in Google finally went for a swim workout and realized how bad that was. Also, while you're working out, I really love that display. Makes a huge difference. It's pretty large here on the 45mm model, very bright, very vibrant colors, and they do a great job of showing different metrics with different colors. So at a glance, you can really easily see the information you're looking for. One complaint though, with all regular smartwatches aside from the sport watches like Garmin, is that the buttons don't really do anything useful during the workout. The top button pauses. That's nice, but to end your workout then, you always have to swipe over. And this is when your hands are wet, if you're running in the rain or if you're swimming. Maybe your hands are sweaty because you're working out. And touchscreens and sweaty hands don't go well together. So it's really annoying to swipe over, you're swiping a bunch, trying to end that workout. And sure, you paused it so you have time to go home and dry your hands off, but that's still a big drawback in my opinion. Otherwise, the buttons, if you hold the top button for too long, you get Gemini. If you press the crown, it goes home, and then it's even harder to get back to your workout because you touch the little thing on the bottom just to get back to that, or you could double press the top to switch between apps, but still, it's kind of annoying that the buttons are doing normal smartwatch things when you're in a workout. I wish you could just have 2 different sets of button functions when you're working out versus the rest of the watch. Even if it was a setting you had to toggle on, that would be really nice. Anyone who makes a smartwatch, if you're watching this video, please give us that feature. Lastly, while there are a good number of sports on here like badminton and some other kind of niche things, there's not really a good multi-sport or triathlon mode. So if you're trying to really train a lot, this is kind of a point of frustration for me. This watch feels so close to the Ultra watches. Like, even though this is just a regular Pixel Watch 4, it feels like this could really compete with the Apple Watch Ultra, the Galaxy Watch Ultra, a lot of the Garmin watches. It's incredibly accurate. The battery life is solid. The display is amazing. It even has cellular and satellite SOS options, but it just doesn't have those more advanced workout features like diving or tides or having other things like multi-sport modes on here, or just the ability to use the buttons for more than just basic smartwatch function. That's my little tangent on workouts. This is so good and so close, and just a couple little software features could make this absolutely destroy things like the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, getting into the next section being features. One feature that Google talked about a lot that I think I'm going to have to disable. This is Lift to speak to Gemini. So it saves you from summoning Gemini, which is just an extra word you would have to say. Not really a big deal to me to say that extra word. And what I really don't like about this feature, maybe it's me, maybe I'm just using it incorrectly, but it seems like it always turns on when I don't want it. Every time I lift my wrist up, if I'm moving a certain way, Gemini is always opening and just like answering to whatever I'm saying. If I'm talking to someone else, like, it just feels like it's, I don't know. I don't really like the way that always summons. Honestly, if you've been seeing me press this home button throughout this video, it's because every time I look at this watch, Gemini has been opening. That said, I like how Gemini is very well integrated. I can ask it to do all sorts of things on the watch, not just timers and stuff like that, but I could ask it about my sleep and different things. But how much can I actually ask it? Well, that's maybe an expanding field, but at least right now, if I say, what was my HRV last night? It simply brings me to my sleep heart rate page, which is close. It's not my HRV while I was sleeping, but it's not a deep integration that would really answer the question with voice. It just brings you to the right page on the watch, which is good. It's something I've always wanted on watches, and I'm happy it's here, but I'm excited to see where this goes in the future with more updates. This also has standalone SOS, which is great. That means like satellite connectivity. If you are out in a desert, no phone service, you don't have your phone around, I'll show you a demo right now. You're able to kind of angle this towards a satellite and send a message and hopefully get help even when there's no cell service. Now, that is only available on the LTE model. I don't believe you have to pay for it, at least not for the first year. But the reason it's only on the LTE model is because it's using that modem on the inside to communicate with satellites. So the non-LTE model just doesn't have the hardware to actually do that. Morning Brief is another awesome feature that really Garmin does best. Pixel's right behind there and nobody else is even close. So in the morning, it'll tell you like how well you slept, what the weather is, what's on your calendar, different things like that. The only reason I put Garmin ahead of this is that the Morning Brief on Pixel, see, there it is again, Gemini. The only reason I put the Garmin above the Pixel in terms of Morning Brief is that this doesn't really turn on until you like walk around your room a little bit. It'd be nice if it just detected that you stopped sleeping, you were awake, you look at your watch, and it'd be nice if it just, shows you the Morning Brief right away. It feels like it's a little bit late for me when I'm already like taking it off to put it on the charger to take a shower. Also, the Morning Brief doesn't let you tap into things. So if you look at the sleep, it tells you the score. If you tap on that, nothing happens. You can't learn more about that. Notifications also are pretty solid on here. They tell you a lot of details. It's just like your phone basically, but they don't always appear for long enough in my opinion. So I'll get a vibration on my wrist, finish typing my sentence, and then glance at it like 2 seconds later. And a lot of times it's already gone by then and I have to scroll up to see my notifications. Now, as far as the processor goes on here, it should be pretty snappy. I'll show you a little app opening speed test here, just opening different apps to see how well it works. And like I said, it's definitely snappy enough. Maybe it's not the snappiest out there. I mean, honestly, I don't really care that much. This is certainly fast enough for my needs. The Fitbit integration on here, like Fitbit, Google, same thing now, and all of the health is taken care of on Fitbit. I really like that the Fitbit app is not, like we're not using Google Fit anymore. Fitbit is really way better as an app. And unlike what a lot of people still think about from a couple of years ago, there's really not much behind the paywall. Like Fitbit Premium gives you some extra stuff, but it's mostly like custom workout related stuff, some AI things. Like for the most part, even the non-Fitbit Premium, like if you just have regular Fitbit app associated with this, it's going to give you all the information you want. There's also no more emphasis on the sleep animal crap. I've really never been a fan of that, where it's like, you are a giraffe. Like, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean I should like change my sleep habits? Like, it doesn't really tell me anything that there's an animal associated with that. No longer do we have that. We just have some raw data. And Fitbit does a good job of showing you like the really high level stuff. You can even customize the app to show you like what you really prioritize, whether it's like heart health or longevity or losing weight or just becoming active. And then you can really tap into things and, go down the rabbit hole and find out exactly what your heart rate variability trends were over the past month and stuff like that. There's also a personalized health coach in the Fitbit app. I'm not exactly sure like what that is, like where it starts and ends, but there's a lot of like random text throughout the app that feels a lot more personalized. It'll tell you some insights pretty much everywhere. It'll tell you like why certain things are happening, like you didn't sleep well or you're very active or things like that. They don't seem to gamify things as much as Garmin does, where Garmin gives you a lot of charts and like, honestly, they kind of just bully you into working out more to give you a fitness age, and like Garmin pushes you a lot more than Fitbit does, or at least the way I have Fitbit set up. All right, check this out. My watch just started just completely bugging out. So I can press the middle button and nothing happens. I can scroll on it and it works. If I press and hold the top button, it looks like Gemini should turn on. The microphone turns on, but it doesn't actually do anything. If I swipe down from the top and I try to adjust like the brightness, nothing happens. Like these all recognize my touches, but okay, that's the only one that actually looks like it's trying to do something. Otherwise, it's just like completely bugging out. If I go to my steps, I can't tap into that. Can't tap into my sleep. This button doesn't bring me home. Completely bugging out. I'm going to try to restart this and see if that fixes it, but that is not a good sign for the Pixel Watch. Right after I filmed the review as well, I've been wearing this for like weeks now, and this is the first time this is happening. All right, so I left this off the charger last night. I didn't wear it, and you can see the problem still exists. If I go up to, say, brightness, nothing happens. Flashlight, nothing happens. I don't know what's going on with this watch. That is not a good sign. All right, good news. I let the watch die completely and then charged it back up, and we now have a fully functional watch again, which is pretty great. I don't know what that bug was. I thought I'd include it in the video though, just in case anyone else experiences that. Definitely a strange one though. Now let me give you a quick tour of the UI on this watch. So like I said, awesome display. Swiping down, you get into your quick settings. There's a ton of quick settings up here. And I like that they're stacked vertically instead of swiping through. So you can just use that crown to go up to all of them. And there are things like, you can find your phone, you can broadcast a heart rate from this to a Peloton or some other bike like that. You can also, go into different modes like do not disturb mode and stuff like that. Swiping up from the bottom shows you notifications, and like I said, vibrant, colorful, easy to read. Swiping left to right, this doesn't work with the crown, so I feel like I don't use these tiles as much as I wish I would, because I like the way they're set up. It's just annoying to swipe through all of them to get to anything. But you can see the Fitbit one will show you like your steps, your daily goal. You've got like sleep, you've got heart rate, and unlike what we're seeing on the Galaxy Watch where they become a stack, each one is kind of its own tile individually. So I feel like this will change in the future, but it's nice how many we do have here. We've got like Google Maps, we've got weather, and you can tap into any of those to learn more about it. Pressing the crown brings you into your apps, and if you scroll to the bottom, you can change it to list view. I really recommend that. It's just easier to find the apps you want when you just, go by title rather than going by icon. Otherwise, you can press both buttons at the same time to take a screenshot. Fun little tip there. Most people don't know that. You can press the top button to see your recent apps. You can press and hold the top button to open Gemini. You can double press the top button to open your most recent app. You can double press the crown to open Google Pay, or you can press and hold the crown, and I don't have that set up to do anything right now. So what about compatibility? Does this work with phones that are not a Google Pixel? Well, it doesn't work with iPhones, but if you have a Galaxy phone or any other Android, it should work just fine. Like I've been having this paired exclusively with the Galaxy Z Fold 7. It's awesome. The only things you're going to miss out on really are like syncing routines, like do not disturb mode in the evening, stuff like that. Doesn't always sync perfectly, but otherwise pretty much everything works from what I can tell really, really well. So the verdict on the Pixel Watch 4. I absolutely love this watch. I think this is very likely going to be the best watch for Android users this year. I think the hardware is fantastic. I think Google nailed it on almost everything. Like I said, the workout stuff, I wish they pushed a little further into that, and the lift for Gemini, raise to talk to Gemini, I'm going to disable that and just use either the button or just summon by voice. And other than that, like this watch, there's really not a lot to dislike about it. Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think about this and what you would like to see different about this watch. If you would like, I could also maybe tear this apart and see how easy it is to replace the display or the battery. I've been a little afraid to do that, but apparently it doesn't affect your water resistance rating. There's an O-ring in there, according to Google. But thanks for watching, guys. If you want a comparison, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in those comparison videos.